Today I'm going to solve a question under statistics and operational research. That happened to be question A. This is a NECO GC question 2025. So I'm going to look at question A, some other time question B, and ultimately question C. So question A says 3 girls, Abiola, Fatima, and Ushena, solve a mathematics question. The probability of Fatima solving it correctly was twice that of Ushena, while Abiola solving it correctly was twice that of Fatima. Find the probability that at least 2 of them solve it correctly. So this is like a word problem in probability. So let's start from the beginning, with that says the probability that Fatima solved it correctly was twice that of Ushena. The question is, what is the probability of Ushena solving it correctly? We don't know. Whatever Ushena solved correctly, Fatima is 3 times that probability. So we're going to say probabilities for Ushena, let's call it X. Probability of Ushena, let's call it X. Then, which is prob U for Ushena, let's say it's X. Then prob F, Fatima, you say is twice Ushena, which is 3X. And prob Abiola A is twice Fatima, which is 2. Fatima is 3X. That will give us 6X. So now that we know the probability of Ushena, Fatima, and Abiola to be X, 3X, and 6X, we know that's probability theory, that probability of Ushena plus the probability of Fatima plus the probability of Abiola, the result is always 1. So with this, you should be able to determine the value of X. So let's fix them in their respective places. Probability of Ushena is X, Fatima is 3X, and Abiola is 6X. So I'm going to have X plus 3X plus 6X. The result is 1. If I add up, that will give us 10X is equals to 1. Therefore, my S is simply 1 over 10. So this is the probability of Ushena. So I will come back, because we said earlier, Ushena probability is X. So probability of Ushena is X. Then that of Fatima is 3X, and Abiola is 6X. So that will give us prob U for Ushena is simply 1 over 10. Prob F, Fatima, is 3X, which is 3 over 10. And prob Abiola is 6S, which is 6 over 10. So with this, now that I've gotten the probabilities for each of them, we can now go back to the question, find the probability that at least 2 of them solve it correctly. At least 2 persons solve it correctly. And there are 3 students, 3 ladies, Abiola, Fatima, and Ushena. What's the probability that at least 2 solve it correctly? That means if Abiola and Fatima solve correctly, that means Ushena fail to solve correctly. Or if Abiola and Ushena solve correctly, that means Fatima fail to solve correctly. Or probability that Fatima and Ushena solve correctly, that means Abiola fail to solve correctly. Or the 3 of them solve correctly. That will not be the context of probability. At least 2 solve correctly. So if I put that in probability statement, that means I'm having prob Abiola solve correctly, Fatima solve correctly, the Ushena fail to solve correctly. Or prob Abiola solve correctly, Fatima fail to solve correctly, and Ushena solve correctly. Or prob Abiola failed to solve correctly, Fatima solved correctly, Ushena solved correctly. Or the probability that Fatima solved correctly, Abiola solved correctly and Ushena solved correctly. So this is the context of the question. At least 2 solved correctly. So we know that success plus failure in probability theory, the result is 1. That means prob, for instance, Abiola solved correctly plus prob Abiola failed to solve correctly, the result is 1. So the probability of failure now is simply 1 minus probability that he succeeded in solving correctly. So this would be the case for Ushena, Fatima, and Abiola. Failure is 1 minus success. So let's do for the 3 of them. I'm going to have prob A failed to solve correctly is 1 minus, let's see what the probability of A. Probability of A is 6 over 10. So 1 minus 6 over 10. The result will give us 4 over 10. Probability that Ushena failed to solve correctly is 1 minus 1 over 10. If you take the LCM, you have 9 over 10. And the probability that Fatima failed to solve correctly is 1 minus 3 over 10. If you take LCM, that will give us 7 over 10. So with this, I can now fix it into the probability equation we wrote earlier, which is this. Probability equation we wrote earlier. I will fix the respective values into it. Prob Abiola solved correctly, Fatima solved correctly, Ushena failed to solve correctly. So that's what we are going to do now. So I'm going to have, let me write it again, prob Abiola solved correctly, Fatima solved correctly, Ushena fails to do so, plus probability of Abiola solved correctly, Fatima failed to solve correctly, Ushena solved correctly, plus probability that Abiola failed to solve correctly, Fatima solved correctly, Ushena failed to solve correctly, or the probability that the 3 of them solve correctly. So with that, I'm going to substitute the expression. This one now implies probability that Abiola solved correctly, or let's see, Abiola solved correctly is 6 over 10. Let's fix that. Prob A is 6 over 10. Prob U is 1 over 10. And prob F is 3 over 10. So let's fix it into the equation. So we're going to have probability that Abiola solved correctly. We're having 6 over 10 times Fatima solved correctly, 3 over 10 times Ushena failed to solve correctly, 9 over 10, plus the probability Abiola solved correctly, 6 over 10 times Fatima failed to solve correctly, 7 over 10 times Ushena solved correctly, that is 1 over 10, plus probability that Abiola failed to solve correctly this time, that is 4 over 10 times Fatima solved correctly, 3 over 10 times Ushena solved correctly, 1 over 10, or the probability that 3 of them solved correctly, 6 over 10 times 1 over 10 times 3 over 10. So all we need to do is to simplify the result that we have here by multiplying. We're going to multiply 6 times 3 times 9, 6 times 3 times 9, then multiply 6 times 7 times 1, multiply 4 times 3 times 1, and also multiply 6 times 1 times 3, then 10 times 10 times 10, that will give us 1000. So if I multiply 6 times 3 times 9, that will give us 162 over 1000. So we're having 162 over 1000 plus, let's multiply 6 times 7 times 1, that will give us 42 over 1000. 42 over 1000 plus, let's multiply 4 times 3 times 1, that is 12 over 1000 plus, let's multiply 6 times 1 times 3, that will give us 18 over 1000. So our LCM will be 1000, so that will give us 162 plus 42 plus 12 plus 18. If you add up, what are we having? 162 plus 42 plus 12 plus 18, that will give us 234 over 1000. So I can reduce to the lowest term to give us by dividing through by 2, 117 over 500. So if you go back to the question, that is the probability that at least 2 of them solve correctly. If you like what you are watching, and for also see more other exciting videos, this is our YouTube channel we call STEM Hub Africa. We have problems in physics, chemistry, maths, further mathematics, technical drawing, computer science. If you like, please subscribe, comment, and share our video. Thank you. See you in our next class.